Ian, let's introduce our third guest, and then we'll move on to some Q&A so you can ask them questions.
Outstanding. Well, let's all say thank you very much to Courtney Gross. She's going to stay up here with us. That was fantastic. She's an extraordinary example of the University of Akron's finest alumni these most recent years. Before we introduce our next guest, I just wanted to let everybody know that the EXL Center has launched. Today was our first day. We're actually doing a 3-day launch. So tomorrow, if anybody's interested, we've got a full day of events as well as Friday at the University of Akron. Our location is in Bierce Library, right in the heart of Bierce Library on the main floor. We'd love for you to come by and see what we've built. A lot of you in this room have been there today already, but please come by. It's open to the community, and it's something that we want everybody to share in, because in that sense, it gets better and it becomes what it's meant to be.
And let's make sure we hyperlink Carolyn Behrman as well. Make sure everybody knows where Carolyn is right up front here.
Hyperlink.
To speak to as well. We could not possibly execute the mission of the EXL Center without you.
Could not have said that better, so I won't say anything else. That's exactly right. Our next guest, the reason we invited a third guest, usually our format, although we've only done this once, is going to be 2 guests, but let's just be honest. The reason we wanted to do a third tonight was because this concept is so important, and the level of our guests tonight is we're really lucky to have Mr. Canfer, and we're really lucky to have Courtney. And what we're wanting to talk about with millennials is the fact that the reality of what the EXL Center and Jumpstart and UARF, the reality of the people that we serve are born pretty much between 1979 and 1996. What is the common knowledge of millennial? Granted, we will be serving anybody, and there are many, many other kinds of people that come in with ideas. But the truth is, by the numbers, we're dealing with that age group. And so to understand them and to harness them is really what we wanted to talk about tonight. And the featured guest of today's launch week grand opening was a man that I deeply admire. And he is the foremost authority on millennials, research, analysis, and iteration. He's a best-selling author, as well as the founder of Zogby Analytics, which is the secondary life form of the Zogby poll, the second most well-known poll on the planet next to Gallup. This gentleman has written a book called The Way They'll Be, and his other book that is most recent is called First Globals. He's got a new book coming out next week he might talk about, but this man is the one to talk about the millennial generation and all the potential they hold, Mr. John Zogby.
Sean, thank you again for joining us today. Grab a microphone from behind you there, John.
Okay.
And
I'm here because I'm between the ages of 67 and 79.
In honor of millennials, John Zogby, I'm just going to call you Jay-Z tonight,
Please,
if that's okay.
I'm the original
All right.
Jay-Z.
All right, Jay-Z. Let's do this, Jay-Z. Talk about, before we started a little bit on the power of wonder. What even got you, and I'm going to start with the millennials, but what made you wonder? What made you write these books? What drove you intellectually to say these are things I want to go explore? Talk about your process.
Well, I have a social science background. I'm a historian. Big picture and soft questions, and that's kind of my role model. Actually, was an Ohio native by the name of Daniel Yankelovich, who founded. Wow, an audible gasp. Okay, he is. More than just, hey, who's ahead and who's losing, but the big picture kind of guy who pulled not just simply opinions and attitudes that are fleeting, but core values. And so after years of doing that, and after getting a wonderful offer from Random House and having to come up with a book idea, I thought, oh my Lord, I've got 25 years.
Make sure you keep that.
Yep. I've got 25 years of polling data. I need to find the pony now. I mean, basically, what's it all mean? And so I came in with some presuppositions about the American dream, and I went through all of my data from 1987 to 2006, and what I found was a completely different story that told itself. And so here was my opportunity then to find the meta trends that would dominate. They've been fairly accurate. In the process, though, one of the things that I discovered that I hadn't noticed just simply one poll at a time was how different millennials are. And so I've gotten into a niche now where I really kind of enjoy the story. And that's what a historian would do. And I think that's what I bring to polling, is the finding the stories and having the numbers then tell the story.
So what is the story of the millennial generation? What is the narrative? And I want to say again, by the way, I'm going to back you up for a minute. You said fairly accurate. For people that don't know, tell them your political track record and predictions, because it's pretty famous.
I've got them to within 0.1% of the actual election.
In how many elections in a row?
5 elections in a row, and I've nailed them within 2 points.
I'd call that fairly accurate.
I can't see you, but I need to hear you. There you
So talk about the narrative of the millennial generation. And I want to say, by the way, I told John this earlier today, but John's research and John's book, if you haven't seen what he's done, it's absolutely phenomenal. When I was talking, as I mentioned earlier this week, when I was talking at the United Nations about the world's youth, this is the one person on the planet that actually referenced, because I think the work you did is extraordinary and absolutely on target. So I encourage you guys to look into it a little bit. But talk about what you've concluded is the narrative of this generation.
Essentially, that this cohort has been developed in a world of rapidly changing technology. And what that technology has done is introduced the rest of the world and the people in the rest of the world to you as Americans at an intimate level, more than we could ever previously anticipate. And so that plus the exposure to young people all over the world to you, to playing soccer more than baseball or football.
Tell them that blew me away today, that statistic of this
something?
generation. I was shocked when you said
Yeah,
that.
this is the first age cohort, to play more in the U.S., we're talking the U.S., to play more soccer than those other sports, which is awesome.
Isn't that
which
amazing?
is
More
global.
soccer than football or baseball this generation.
Amazing. But what there is a global sensibility among this age cohort that has never existed before. A sensitivity to other people, other cultures. And that's not only esoteric, it's not only an attitude, it's a reality. Because as you look around, hey, look, I was here on campus today. Had I gone to the University of Akron 25 years ago, I would have seen mainly white students and the African Americans over here in one corner and the Latinos over here in another corner. But here today, what I saw was a mixed audience, a mixed group of friends, a mixed group. So this is a group that appreciates diversity, does not see other cultures as the other, but sees them as one, is a group that is mobile, that has passports, wants to travel, appreciates the rest of the world, wants to experience the rest of the world, are foodies. I didn't mention that one today, but you sit down with a group of millennials, and I do, when my sons come home, and let's have Thai. Oh, stop it, just give me I just want a goddamn steak. No, let's do Pakistani. You are annoying too. I do want to say that I'm very effusive about millennials, but catch me at the bar after my third Malbec, and I'll tell you more.
What's amazing though about this globally connected generation is how rapidly our differences are shrinking and our similarities are growing. Yeah. Yesterday, from the campus here at University of Akron, I did a live Skype session with students all across Pakistan that we had. And I could have, if I wasn't looking at the screen, I could have been talking to students anywhere on this campus. The value system, these were all Pakistani students, but the conversation is the same as the kind of conversations I have with you. Talk about how you think what's good and bad for our future based on the way this generation behaves.
What's good about the future is a global understanding. And look, as we deal with issues like global warming, for example, and for the first time in history, we're realistically talking about the eradication of poverty and the eradication of diseases and so on. These are solutions that require global cooperation. And the fact that these are young people who already have within their social networks a tremendous amount of diversity and a facility in dealing with people of other cultures is amazing. I you know, just by way of anecdote, I told a story earlier.
Please do. It's a
Yeah,
great story.
I had the opportunity to poll and do focus groups in Tunisia. The first election in Tunisia, October of 2011, after years of dictatorship, and I did 24 focus groups among people. You know, the population there, over half of you know, the developing world are folks that are under 30. And so we did focus groups among people mainly under 35 years of age. And it really plumbed, you know, deeply into their thoughts and into their values and where they stood. But in every one of those focus groups, they said to me, what do the American kids think? Do they think we're cool? And that is so inspirational, honestly. I did hear to some degree the same sort of thing in Egypt as well. The kids that are out there in Tahrir Square were, you know, much like in 1968, the whole world is watching, you know, outside the Democratic Convention. The kids in Tahrir Square were wondering, what are the American kids saying about us? You know, I mean, they had access to social media. And the revolution wasn't just in the square. The revolution was like this, you know, clicking. And that is such an amazing, powerful message. By way of polling, one thing you should know is that when it comes to millennials, we've asked them if they have someone in their social network who is from various parts of the world. And the lowest number is the 31% of the American kids who say, I have someone in my social network from sub-Saharan Africa. So when you think that even more, including majorities, have someone in China or in India and Brazil or Russia, it is just amazing. And for someone my age, that is just so incredibly revolutionary.
You know, really interesting. By the way, on just a random coincidence, I just came back from Tunisia. I went there for Revolution Day. They invited me. And
really neat.
I got to meet with the Prime Minister, and I said, tell me about the revolution. And he said, quote, I can't because the millennials did this.
Yes.
He literally said
isn't
to
that
me,
awesome?
we didn't do this. The young people did this. They engineered it. They planned it. They wanted it. They basically... the start of the Arab Spring was the Tunisian Revolution, and he told me millennials made all this happen and helped him write the new constitution and declare a democracy.
And
that's pretty
absolutely.
impressive.
That is very, very impressive. Isn't that?
You know, to your point about the American culture, also when I went to visit, I learned the same thing in Egypt when I went to visit and went to Tahrir Square. Not only was it really young people driving all that change, you know what they called it? The Egyptians called it the Facebook revolution.
Yeah.
And I said, why are you doing that? And they said, because we overthrew our government using social media. This is amazing. They said we were more passionate and we were better communicators and faster organizers than the army because we used social media. In one tweet, we could mobilize all the young people and have them do exactly what we needed while the army was still making plans. So social media and millennials overthrew the Egyptian government as well.
They did, and just by way of some commentary that I think we need to understand by way of, you know, of perspective, revolutions are ugly and they take a long time. But the American Revolution was very ugly, and we did not resolve it until there was a Constitution and a George Washington presidency. But had there been Wolf Blitzer and Anderson Cooper, this whole thing is screwed up. You know, it's going to die. It's going to end. So we just be patient with the rest of the world. They'll do it on their own way, their own time.
So the role, again, our topic was not politics tonight, but just what impact is this millennial generation going to have on this election? How do you see that playing out, and how significant is that?
Millennials define the election. If they turn out to vote, then there not only is it a Democratic president, but there is a Democratic change in the Senate, a majority change, and significant increase in the number of Democrats in the House. They don't turn out to vote, and the model is closer to those off-year elections when millennials don't turn out to vote, then you're looking at Republican victories. Now, there's some misunderstandings. On one hand, these are not partisan comments because, don't get me started on Hillary. But
clearly, your brain just started on Hillary.
okay.
We would like to get this man a drink so we can move on.
Yeah. I'll have another Malbec. There is genuine fear and loathing among millennials of Donald Trump. And it's not simply the marriage of celebrity culture with our politics, but when you take a look at the keystone of what he stands for, millennials are pro-immigration. Millennials are diverse. This is an age cohort where overall, ages 18 to 37, you're looking at 40% who are non-white. If you look at the younger half of millennials, say 18 to 24, 18 to 25, you're looking at a group that already is about 43% non-white. And so you're also looking at when you look at Muslim Americans, not a large group, but it's a group that at least is 4 or 5 million strong. But if you look at who Muslim Americans are, they skew much younger than older. So you've got to wonder then, who is Donald Trump, who is the Republican Party, for that matter, talking to? At the same time, and to be fair, there's not a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for Democrats, but there is a decided fear in terms of a Republican message.
Okay, let's cover one more topic, and then we're going to turn the mic over to our audience, which is the gig economy.
Yes.
I know that's something that you study. I know that's something that you live. This whole notion that corporations and employees used to have a discussion about your long-term career, and today's talent doesn't want that. Talk about the gig economy, and then we'll open up the floor.
It's not so much only that they don't want it. It's not their reality. We have a transformational economy, and that part of that transformation is, a multitude of things. One is less commitment to a long-term to a community, reducing costs by using mechanization and robotics. Tremendous changes that have impacted young people by way of understanding that there are going to be very few long-term careers. And add to that the fact that since the Great Recession, if you are 31, 32 years of age, your entire adult life has been lived in the midst of a tough economy and a very difficult way of getting started. So the gig economy, that notion that, hey, I've got to constantly be out there and nimble. My number one product is me. And how do I package? Oh, you know what? This is. Thank you so much. And you have no idea how good I'm going to be after I finish this second one. And that's what's really sad. So. Oh no! Let me tell you about the struggles in my. No, I'm kidding. But as far as the gig economy is concerned, young people are in the midst of having to struggle and survive through that gig economy. 20-somethings today will have had 4 gigs by the age of 30. 10 by the age of 40. That is the way we live, and that is who we are.
Thank you so much. Well, how about a round of applause for John, for Jay-Z, excuse me.